Welcome back to the Paranormal Pop-Up Podcast, episode 44, coming to you from Ferocious Feline Studios in Cassopolis, Michigan. Hey kids, it's Papa. Welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Pop-Up Podcast. We're getting really close to that 1 year mark, and the closer we get, the more excited I get. I can't wait to start doing the live podcasts, same time of course, every Friday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've got some very good guests set back here in the old file system. I can't wait to share with y'all. You know, for the last couple of weeks, we have been paying a lot of attention to the science behind paranormal. What makes people believe in the paranormal? What makes people's minds susceptible? What makes the individuals themselves susceptible? Boy, have we got a special one for you tonight. Tonight we are going to go over and visit the Strange Talk podcast and their hostess, Alex. Now, she's going to sit down and she's going to speak to parapsychologist Kelly Curtis. Now, her PhD research it goes into a lot of detail about the different types of exposure to death and dying, and how it shapes our beliefs, our identities, and the psychological outcomes. And that whole thing brings a unique perspective to the world of hauntings and the anomalous experiences that go with it. She has even gone as far as to develop a new system, a new scale, per se, on predetermination of potential clients. And, well, her team, based out of Manchester, England, the Paranormal Rescue Team, they lovingly named the whole process the Curtis scale. And as I said, it helps to pre-screen, predetermine who is actually having paranormal occurrences and who is having psychological occurrences, maybe physical, maybe medical. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm going to let you guys listen to what they have to say.
Good evening and welcome to the hour dedicated to talking about all things strange, weird, and paranormal. You're listening to Strange Talk, broadcasting on 1660 AM in Northside and 91.7 FM HD2 WVXU in Cincinnati. We're also streaming at radioartifact.com around the entire planet Earth. The intro track to this episode and most of our episodes is the Strange Talk intro by Starsilk. I'm your host, Alex, and we have a very special guest this week. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kelly Curtis. I am a parapsychological researcher, paranormal investigator based in Manchester, England, but originally, as you might be able to tell from my accent, from the US. I'm currently finishing my PhD, researching death, paranormal belief, and all things weird, basically.
Yes. And you are also part of the paranormal rescue team. We had Brian and Helen on before, and they were the ones who put us in touch with you. So I always love when our past guests are like, here's somebody else you should talk to.
Yes. Love my paranormal rescue team.
Yes. Yeah, that's so fun. And I'm just excited because I think parapsychology is so fun and interesting, and I don't know, it's just neat.
Yeah.
I feel like
largely misunderstood in the public arena. Yes.
I was about to say, I feel like most people's introduction to parapsychology, for most people, probably came from Ghostbusters, where they're talking about parapsychology with the Zener cards that I just realized I have right here.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. So how did you get into parapsychology?
Yeah, I mean, you probably hit the nail on the head there with Ghostbusters. Essentially, every young 80s kid's pinnacle of all things cool and strange. But I've had an interest in the paranormal in general my entire life, since I can remember. I used to, as a kid, tell my mom ghost stories about the ghosts I would play with at night in my bedroom. And luckily, I had parents who were very also inclined to the paranormal, so they didn't shut that interest down in me. So I used to, even as a young kid in my small hometown, I grew up in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, tiny little town.
Ohio for me, so yeah.
Yeah, same, just a different flavor slightly. I used to investigate my neighborhood ghosts and go and knock on my neighbors' doors and ask if I could check out the ghosts and freak people out. I remember neighbors literally just shutting the door in my face. And I mean, it wasn't just an interest for me. I was definitely on the research track. I would go to the library, zoom through microfiche, trying to figure out who these people were that were still lingering around our little town, and go to the cemetery, find their headstones. I tried to do it legit, if you will, even as a young kid. And that interest has just stayed with me my entire life. And, I lived in Austin, Texas, most of my adult life. And I was part of an investigation team there. And, COVID hit eventually, right? As we know. And I'm sure, as with a lot of people, it had me questioning, what do I really want to be doing? It was one of those wake-up calls where am I spending my time how I really want to be spending it? What are my true passions? And at that point in time, I was like, let's go get a parapsychological PhD. Let's just make it actually legit for me and do it for real. So that's when I moved to England and started my research, doing parapsychological studies, more from the psychological lens, just to have a little more credibility in the field in general. But I was like, let's just make it legit. And here we are.
Was England your pick for school, or was it just more access to ghosts out there?
It was mainly about, there are very few universities worldwide that will entertain this type of research. So that was the first hurdle, was who is even going to care? There are some schools peppered around, like in Edinburgh, they actually have like a parapsychological PhD program, but they weren't accepting any students when I applied. Because again, this was like still during COVID, because it's dwindling, but schools weren't just open.
Yeah.
And there is a school in Georgia that has this type of lens. And in Australia, there's some in like Central America. But in Manchester Metropolitan University, I was aware of some research a couple people there, professors there, had been doing, and they happened to be taking on students to do PhD supervision. So I wrote to them and they were like, come on board. So it was really a kind of a mix of accessibility and who was open to it at that moment in time as well. So it was very much a stars aligning kind of moment for me. I was like, hey, let's do this. They were like, sounds great. And it just happened. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Manchester Metropolitan.
We were discussing a little bit before that you're very close to your PhD now. Are you going to stay there once you get your PhD?
Yes, absolutely. I feel very connected to this area and its history for various reasons. And I've just been making this new chapter of my life here, so it makes sense to stick around.
Stay. Yeah. It's tough being in school and then being like, I'm leaving after this. Like, I don't want to get attached here because I'm going to be leaving. So that's always tough.
Exactly. Yeah. I got attached, so no, I'm staying.
That's what happened.
Yes.
So, parapsychology. You sent me the abstract of your study.
My big research project for my PhD.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. My background educationally, my undergrad I did in psychology, and then my master's I did in mental health counseling. So I was a very mental health focused lens in my academic career prior to this. So I wanted to bring that into play. One of the issues with studying parapsychology is you're sort of the black sheep of academia. And you get labeled as a pseudoscience and nobody takes you seriously for like all the wrong reasons. I can go on and on about the ethics and just the politics of that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ground my interest in the paranormal into the psychological side of things so it would be more accessible to the broader, psychology community, to the public at large. So what I decided to do is look at how different types of exposure to death and dying impact people's beliefs about death, dying, the afterlife, the paranormal. It also skims into things like people's well-being and their religious beliefs. But what was at the heart of it for me, like my personal interest, was really that question of, does the type of death you're exposed to influence or impact what you think happens when you die? And whether or not there's an ongoing connection, relationship that exists there. So that was at the heart of my research question, exploring this. And what I mean by different types of exposure is I was looking at it from kind of 6 types or compartments, if you will. So we have people who are exposed to loved ones in the process of dying and exposed to loved ones after death. Like you go to their funeral, maybe you help take care of the body. Some cultures, they actually help prepare the body for, funeral rituals and things like that. So we have kind of the personal life, my personal relationships aspect, but both with death and dying. That was a big question for me too. Are people who are exposed to the dying process, are they influenced differently about their beliefs about death, differently than people who are just exposed to a body, a lifeless situation? So there's that, the personal life lens, but then there's also the professionals, people who are exposed to death on the job all the time, over and over again, first responders and hospice care and morticians and people who work in cemeteries and these people who have a professional path where it's repeated, it's like not so personal, it's kind of part of their job. And how does that impact their beliefs about what happens when we die? And again, death versus dying. Are those professionals who are exposed to people in the dying process different than the people who are morticians?
Yeah, who only see them afterwards.
A body, right? Is that different? But then we also have these sort of internal lens here. The people who are exposed to their own death and dying, people who are in hospice care. I know I'm going to pass. How does that impact their beliefs about what happens when we die collectively? And same, like people who have had near-death experiences. I've had a life-threatening accident. I thought I was going to die. I saw the white light, whatever, those like near-death experience tropes that we hear.
Yeah.
How is that different than the people who are terminally ill? What do those people think about death and dying? So we have all these different types of exposures that we experience in our life, and I could have somebody who has that on the job, but also in their personal life, but also had a near-death experience. So there's overlap there too. And it just became this bigger question, like, are these groups different? Are they the same? How are they different if they are, in terms of their beliefs about what happens when we die?
Yeah. And did you end up finding any good correlations there, or was it kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Largely when it comes to beliefs about what happens when we die, the biggest differences were between those who experience their own death and dying, and then sort of the external, other people are dying.
Oh, okay.
The people who experience it themselves tend to have, surprisingly, this combination of the most paranormal belief.
Okay. Yeah.
But they're the most neutral about it too.
Huh.
So that was particularly surprising for me, because I have yet to have a near-death experience, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I would imagine if I were to have a near-death experience, for example, I would have strong opinions about it. My experience would give me like feelings, or just like, I experienced this, so I'm certain this is going to happen, or like it's good or it's bad or whatever. But that particular group, people exposed to their own death specifically, they are the most neutral. Meaning, I don't see positive, I don't see negative. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So be it.
That could be, they did survive, so...
Yeah, it's sort of like maybe lets go of attachment to it in a way. But that was something that was a big surprise. Yeah. Because if I just put myself in their shoes, I'm like, man, I think I would have strong opinions.
I would think so too.
Right? But they're just like, it is what it is. Fun. Yeah, despite having really like higher levels of saying they believe in the paranormal. Yeah. Yes. And they also report the highest rates of like paranormal experiences. Interesting. Which kind of brings me to that side question of like, does this sort of leave a door open?
That's exactly. I've heard a lot of people say that, where like it's kind of like they got a glimpse of the other side, and now they can just kind of see it still.
Yeah, it's like there's a tether there that now is just there. Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. They have the most belief and experiences, but they're still the most neutral. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes, interesting. And then when we look at the people who have exposure through their loved ones, my loved ones have died or are dying, they tend to be kind of in the middle, I'll say. So like as far as like paranormal experiences, it's pretty average. As far as paranormal belief, pretty average. But they have stronger feelings about what happens when we die, meaning they really lean on it's joyous, there's a heaven. You know, it's like the absence of sorrow, or, you know, they describe it in a lot of different ways, but they really have this belief, which I think is based on, they don't want to believe negative things for their loved ones, right? They want to believe they're in a better place, their suffering is gone, they're, you know, whatever it might be. So it's like, they're pretty like average with the population about their paranormal belief levels and how much they report experiences. But they have this higher, like, it's joyful and continued bonds of like, you know, my loved ones are looking out for me, and like all that sort of cherry-coated view of the afterlife.
You don't want to think grandma died and now she's going to haunt my house and be throwing chairs around my house.
Right. Thank you. Right. Or even the aspect of nothingness. Like, they want to believe something is there and it's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that
I get it.
entirely makes sense to me, where I'm like, I'm glad that is what happened there, because I'm like, I feel like that's always the story you hear of people who are sitting with their loved ones when they die. They always say like they just got this serene look on their face, and I'm like, is it serene, or are you projecting that? That's fine if you are. You know, nobody wants to think something bad is, you know, happening at the last moments.
Right. But it's interesting because it also pairs with a lot of the experiences that people who are going through the process themselves report, that they do sort of have this serene. A lot of people report like deathbed visions and seeing their loved ones, and this kind of anomalous experiences through the dying process that I think also influences the people who are still here, their loved ones who haven't passed. I think it sort of gives this little feedback loop between them. The dying are reporting these things, and the living are holding on to it in a positive light. Now, we have that professional group still. This also gave a lot of interesting, potentially contradictory results. Professionals as a whole reported the like almost anti-skeptical paranormal belief. I don't believe it. I don't think it happens. Like, nope, you can't put me. I do not identify as being a paranormal believer. No. Okay, cool. We can look at that from a lot of lens of like, oh, well, they're scientists and they look at the biological side of things, and, you know, culture within those groups of like, you don't, if you go there, you're the wacko, you know.
Stigma a little bit too of, if you...
Absolutely.
You're going to be labeled as spooky if you talk about believing in those things.
Absolutely, because we have to be professional, right? Sure. However, they report so much paranormal experience despite saying they don't believe in it, which created this contradiction that I found fascinating. And part of my research, I really was interested in this professional group. One, because they're highly understudied in this aspect. A lot of research looking at this type of thing looks at the bereaved and the people who are dying themselves. This professional group doesn't get looked at very much. So it was like this question mark for me that I wanted to dive into. And growing up, my mother was a flight medic. So she would go on the helicopter to the worst of the worst accidents and saw all sorts of death and dying and destruction and chaos in her work. And she would come home and talk about a lot of this stuff. She was very open about it. And she would also talk about the spooky things that happened surrounding people dying, because weird things happen when people die. And she would also say how differently people would interpret these things. So they would experience something as like the team of people, like paramedics on the site. She would interpret it one way. Person to her right would say, oh no, that's this. Person to her left would say, oh no, that's this happening. And it, even as a kid, it had me really wondering how we can all have the same anomalous experience, but why are we interpreting it so differently? So I was particularly intrigued by this professional group in my research. And so I spent a whole like phase of my research interviewing professionals on the job and hearing their stories and their beliefs and their backgrounds and all of these things. It was fascinating. And what I've really like honed in on is kind of room for further research. This new question that emerged is, does this frequent exposure to weird stuff surrounding death turn the paranormal into normal? Because
that is a great question.
Like this group would be saying things like, oh no, I'm not a believer. Even like part of my research was like surveys, questionnaires. And so like hundreds of professionals would answer these questionnaires who were in these types of jobs. And they like across the board are like skeptical, like anti-paranormal belief. But then when you talk to them, when I got into interviewing them, they would say things like, oh, no, I've never experienced anything weird and spooky, but let me tell you the weirdest, spookiest story ever. And I would just giggle to myself, like, you're literally telling me, like, you saw a ghost in the hospital ward, and you don't put patients in room number 207. But it wasn't a ghost. But no, I'm not a paranormal believer.
Yeah, I don't believe in ghosts. I just saw one.
Right, exactly. We just know as a unit not to put people in room whatsoever because then they'll die, right? Like,
this makes sense to me. A friend of mine has her PhD in neuroscience, and all she does is study rat brains all day. And
interesting.
she's like, I don't believe in ghosts, but she's the jumpiest person when we start talking about ghosts, where she's like, oh, what was that? And I'm like, I thought you didn't believe in ghosts.
Right.
What was that?
Yeah.
Why are you freaked out?
Why are you even reacting? Yeah.
And it cracks me up.
So, yeah, it just makes me wonder if these people just aren't classifying these things as paranormal. They're classifying them as normal aspects to the process of dying.
Yeah.
And so therefore they're not attaching to that the belief of it, but they do experience these things nonetheless. Fascinating to me, like this contradiction.
Yeah. It almost feels like it's like being in denial in some ways. But I think you're more correct, and it is more just the normalizing of it, of just, I've seen so much weird stuff that I'm like, well, even if that's kind of weird, like, I'm sure I'll find an explanation for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because it certainly had made, across the board of the people I actually interviewed, it made them more inquisitive, but not inquisitive enough to, like, completely change their belief system. They became more nuanced, perhaps, but not like, I went from skeptic to believer in ghosts. Yeah.
They're like, maybe. I'm not going to say yes, but it's not quite a no anymore.
Right. And some of them even would say, like, I believe anomalous things happen to those that are dying, but they don't happen to the living, to like, they're not happening to me, even though I'm witnessing this thing happening to someone who is in the process of dying. It's weird that they still separate themselves. And that's less of a surprise to me, because I'm sure there's so much compartmentalization that has to happen to do the work of caring for somebody who's dying or the dead. So it doesn't surprise me that they sort of like other that. Like,
Yeah.
that's happening to them, not to me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm
Even though
sure
I'm in the room and experiencing
so
it.
much of it is probably also like no, I'm not losing my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, stigma does play a big part of this. A lot of them would talk about how, like, oh, I've had this happen, this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened on the job, and you don't dare talk about it. Like, you don't tell anybody. And it's sort of sad in a way to me, because I'm like, if all of you would just open up about this, the stigma wouldn't even happen, because you're all telling me the same thing.
Story. Yeah.
All of you. Yeah. So why aren't you all talking about this? Why is it such a stigma?
That's such a big part of why I do this show, is because it's just like, there doesn't need to be a stigma about this. We can talk about the weird things that happen to us. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're weird now. It's just, you had a weird thing happen to you.
Yeah. And why can't that just be okay and normal? I'm going to use that word again. Yeah.
My day job, I work in IT at a distillery, and it is a very old distillery. It was built in the 1700s or 1800s. I don't remember which right now, but it's haunted. I mean, like, everybody always, because I'm the spooky one at work, everyone always comes to me with their weird stories of all the, like, weird ghost stuff that they see there. And so I've been trying to convince them. I'm like, can we go ghost hunting in the distillery? Yeah. I'm like, we have all these stories, like, I know, like, you know, where deaths have occurred in there. And I'm like, I think it'd be really cool to go ghost hunting there, but no, they're not letting us yet. I'm sure one day I'll wear them down.
That's when you just happen to find yourself carrying a recorder around while you're working.
I definitely do that. I definitely do that. I haven't got anything good yet, but, you know, I'll get it eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it's so interesting. Yeah, older buildings like that do end up having a lot more weird stuff. And that might also be what we're ascribing to it, you know. We're going in a little bit expecting it to have a history. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely part of, like, the psychology of hauntings, if you will. This, you're sort of priming yourself for this type of thing. And it matters. Like, I've, one of my supervisors, actually, I have a primary and a secondary supervisor for my PhD, and they did a project together where they took a group of the general public into a haunted estate, essentially, and told them that they were doing, like, an investigation. They split the group up into a couple different groups, and they told each group different stories. This room has a lot of activity. Others, that place in the building has a lot of activity. The third group, oh, it's the West Wing over there that has a lot of activity. And then they sort of sent them on their way in groups and told them to, like, write down their experiences. They went through this big manor, and sure enough, like, the people reported more, spooky feelings, and I think I saw something out of the corner of my eye in the places that they were primed, which, of course, it did. Like, yeah, obviously. Yeah, it's just the way our brains are wired to experience the world. And then that's kind of, you know, like, is it just being primed, or is it also maybe they're just paying more attention there as well, because, like, they know something weird's supposed to be happening there, so that's hard to track down why they're getting it there too. Right. And how do we even go about verifying those types of things? Like, is their experience legitimate because they're reporting it, or is it just like this psychological phenomenon of being primed to experience something? Or, I mean, it even makes me, in my weird side of my brain, go down the question of, like, or are the spirits knowing what stories they were told and, like, wanting to be seen, and so therefore they show themselves in these places that they know the people are expecting to see, that, you know? Yeah, they're hearing it and go, we got to put on a show now. Yeah, right. I have to go to the kitchen now because this group is expecting me there. Yeah. Who knows, right? I don't know how that works. I love the idea that, you know, spirits are listening in and going, well, normally I hang out in the foyer, but they said I show up in the kitchen, so I guess that's where I'm going today.
Yeah, I guess I'm a cook today. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, but also in my research, I kind of looked a little bit into this, like the question of whether our beliefs inform our experiences, or do our beliefs, or vice versa. I forget which way I said that initially. Do our beliefs influence our experiences? Do our experiences influence our beliefs?
Yes.
And the data from my research really shows there's a feedback loop happening.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. When we have an experience, it influences our beliefs slightly more than the other way around. So it like, if you want to ask the chicken or the egg, what comes first, it really is the experience, as far as my data that I got goes. Yeah. Experience first, then belief. However, there is still the feedback loop the other way around, where what we believe will influence what we experience and how we interpret those things. Yeah, goes both ways. Feedback.
That makes sense to me, because you kind of have to have the experience, that spark that makes you, look into something where then you're like, oh, okay, so this is what I experience. Now I believe this. And then, like, once you have a held belief, even if you experience something else, you're like, but I have this belief already. This isn't compatible with that. So yeah, that makes sense.
How do I reconcile?
Yeah, how do I reconcile these two things? And that's why it kind of just, it takes a lot of different experiences to finally tip that needle once you have a held belief. But yeah, you said experiences are more influential, slightly more. That kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. That feedback's a little stronger in that direction.
Yeah, because how can you argue with what's right in front of you versus just what you believe?
People try, but it's hard.
True.
Yeah.
Did you get to go on any paranormal investigations while you were doing this study?
Yeah, absolutely, with the paranormal rescue team.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I mean, I'm like, how do I put this? A lot of times when you're on an investigation team and the public is reaching out to you with their cases, asking for help, unfortunately, a lot of that pre-screening is, what is the mental health state of these people?
Yes.
And I don't say that to dismiss people's experiences, because even people who are in the throes of a mental health issue absolutely can be experiencing paranormal and perhaps even more susceptible to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? However, where do you put your resources?
Yes.
And it becomes this tough question of, can we put our resources into certain cases compared to others? That's just, we're only so many people. We only have so much time and only so much resources on our end. So we have to choose where we go investigate. And this has become an ongoing thing. Even when I was on the team I worked with in Texas, like, you would get some, sometimes it's just a gut feeling. You would get some inquiries to your team and you just go, oh Lord, like, no, I'm sorry, that is not an alien in your backyard. It is a moth. And the picture proof you sent me is just, it's a moth. I'm sorry.
Yes, so I work in IT. My degree is in audio and video, so radio and television. And so many people send me pictures that I'm like, oh, that orb is like, that's dust on your camera, or it's an insect. And I always feel so bad when I'm like, hey, I really know my way around cameras. Like, this is what this is. That's not to say that people don't get orb photos that are real, but this in particular is not. And we've also had someone who's been emailing us recently about alien photos in his backyard, and
interesting.
I ran a background check on him in this day that he supposedly saw this alien was also the day that he got arrested for being in public on a controlled substance. And going through his Facebook, I saw him posting a lot about meth. And I was like, oh, I can put one and one together here.
Right.
So, yeah, stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, you want to be careful about who you're talking to, where you're like, I don't want to not believe you. It's just, I'm going to also verify that as well.
Right. I'm going to use some discretion here and proceed with caution, perhaps. Yes. Yeah, and, you know, again, that raises the question of maybe the aliens are reaching out to the meth head.
And could be.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
I will say the pictures that he was sending, I was like, I don't even see anything here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one recently with a woman who is, like, bless her. She was convinced an orb was open, or a portal, was opening up in her bedroom at night.
Oh my gosh.
And these like demonic entities were coming through this portal to harass her at night. And we're like, one of the first questions we ask is like, do you have any evidence? What can you share with us? Like, and she's like, yes, I have video. And we're like, intrigued.
Okay.
Please share. It's just a badly painted white wall. Like,
oh my gosh.
And again, I'm like, there's this fine line between, like, what do they call that? The Cassandra complex, where, like, somebody is actually experiencing something and no one believes them. Mm-hmm. But there's only, like, we have to move forward with what we can verify, and I can't verify that.
That particular situation, my favorite, like, paranormal investigation show of all time is Paranormal Home Inspectors. Have you ever seen it?
No, but I love the sound.
There's only like 10 episodes. I think it's actually set in England. I don't remember exactly. There's only 10 episodes. It's all on YouTube. I don't know why they never made this like a longer series. But they go into this place that is having these experiences, and they have a home inspector come in. They have a paranormal investigation team come in, and then they have a medium come in. And my only issue with the show is I wish they would air the segments in opposite order, because they show the paranormal home inspector first, who goes through and basically debunks everything. Where he's like, oh, you're seeing this here because these are two slightly different shades of white on the wall, so you're seeing a person at the top of the stairs because it's actually the different shades of white interacting.
Your eyes are just...
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, this door keeps coming open because it's not on the frame correctly. And like, yeah, he just goes through and he debunks everything. So then the paranormal investigation team comes through, and of course they find all this evidence that is the stuff that he's already debunked. And then the medium comes through, and she is just straight making stuff up, and then they try to verify it at the end. And like, I don't think any of them, they ever verified anything she said, which she might be an amazing medium, I don't know, but just the stuff that was on the show, I was like, oh, this is so unfortunate. But it is my favorite paranormal show of all time, just because I think the home inspector's name is David. He just goes through and he just debunks everything. Where it's just like, oh, these are the issues here. And that's not to say they're not having, you know, paranormal issues on top of that, but it, like, most of the main things, it's like, oh, this is just, you just have some issues with your home that are easily fixed.
Right. I love the concept of that. But yeah, I agree. They should do that in the opposite order. Let's start with the extraordinary and then dwindle it down.
Where you're all spooked out and then you're like, oh, wait, actually, because the thing is, I'm not saying there's not paranormal experiences. I'm saying you want to make sure that you have hard, concrete evidence. Because there are things like pareidolia, where you want to see faces and everything. Yeah. So
absolutely. It's just the way our brains are wired to make sense and fill in the gaps. And that's why we see faces in marble and figures in the clouds and all of that. It's like our brains are wired to do so.
Yes.
So therefore, of course, we're seeing a figure at the top of the stairs when the color is off. But yes, that doesn't mean that there's a portal with demonic figures coming through your bedroom wall.
Yeah, that might just be different paint colors.
It might be. But yes, so like this is where my role on this particular team really comes into play is the pre-screening and using my psychology and my mental health background to get those more verifiable accounts. Because you do want to get rid of all the like explainable stuff. And then when there's like that 2% that you just can't explain, that's where we're really cooking with gas. That's where we're really asking questions about what is this? We cannot explain what is happening here, even though we've tried to explain what is happening here. I actually developed something that the team lovingly calls the Curtis scale. It's my last name. So it's like literally an assessment, a checklist, where I will interview the potential homeowner or like business owner, whatever it might be. And there's like a point scale that's given. If you're under this point scale, sorry, we don't have the resources to investigate. If you're over this point scale, we're really intrigued. If you're over that point scale, like
we're there already.
Good luck keeping us away from this. So it's been really helpful. And a lot of that does get dwindled out with, the people who are just maybe having their own internal thing. But, again, my psychology mind can't help but wonder. And I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of people that I really admire in this field, Greg and Dana Newkirk. If any of you listening haven't heard of Greg and Dana Newkirk, I absolutely adore them. And they've done a lot of interesting work around the idea that most hauntings are actually happening inside your mind, regardless of the external factors that are happening. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, it becomes like that question of like, well, how do I know the aliens aren't only able to talk to the person who's on substances? And how do I know that there's not something going on with this woman where she's the only one that can see the demons coming through the portal in her wall? It just becomes this like endless, like I said, rabbit hole of I don't have the answers. But nonetheless, I am intrigued as hell about trying to find the answers to this. Absolutely.
I agree with that because, maybe they are only talking to them. It's just, for me, it's hard for me to talk to them just because it's just like I can't get a coherent story out of you as to what happened. That's my main issue with it. It could be maybe they are getting stuff that we're not getting.
Maybe the aliens are broadcasting to all of us, but they're the only ones.
They're tuned into that channel.
Exactly.
Maybe that's the problem. Our antennas are not wired the right way for it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I mean, constant investigation still happening during this PhD. I tried not to let it inform my PhD too much because that's a little bit more of a passion project than the aim of my PhD research. But nonetheless, I still experienced a lot of interesting things on my investigations here in England. One time, it was making me think of this experience. We went to, here in England, some smaller cities have buildings where their courthouse, their jail, and their police station are all housed in the same building. And so we went to investigate one of these, and it was like sort of a public event. So we were hosting it, but people could come like buy a ticket and do an investigation, people who are interested in the paranormal. And during this particular event, we decided to set it up where us on the team, we would sort of be stationed in different parts of the building, and the public could kind of just wander around at their own will. So it was a little less guided. It was a little more like, y'all just have fun kind of thing. If you want to talk to us in the hot spots, we'll be there. And so I was sat in a jail cell that had a lot of reported activity in. And the jail cell itself was really long and narrow, very shotgun, a bench on one side at the end, like where the bed used to be. And for those of you who have been on an investigation, a proper investigation, a lot of it is not what you see on TV. A lot of it is just sitting quiet in the dark, trying not to make noise.
This is the conversation I've been having so much recently of like, it's like fishing. You're just sitting there doing nothing until something happens.
Until something happens, right? So here I am in the dark in this jail cell, and nobody's come in for a little bit because they're all wandering around. It's a fairly big building. And eventually this couple comes in, a man and a woman, they're married. And so I'm telling them a little bit about the space we're in. And the wife sits on the bench next to me, and the husband stands across from me because there's just the one bench in this room, essentially. And because it's such a narrow space, he's like, if I reached out my hand, I could have touched the husband standing across from us. And so that's what I tell them we're going to do, is we're just going to sit here and we're going to just take in the space, let our eyes adjust, let our ears adjust, let our senses adjust to this space. And if any of you sense anything, just let's talk about it. And so we're sitting there, and maybe about 5 minutes pass. I give this pair a lot of credit for just being it. A lot of people can't do that, just sit in silence for a while. So they were on board, and eventually your eyes do adjust. You can see the darkness differently, and the space becomes a little more clear. And all of a sudden, the man across from his wife and I shifts his body weight and is looking down at us a little differently. And the only way I can describe it is he looked different.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, maybe it's just the change of the shadow on his face from him just adjusting his stance. Mm-hmm. Maybe my eyes, again, pareidolia does weird things to what we see. But I looked at his wife, and she looked at me very concerned at the same time. And we both look back at her husband, and then we look back at each other, and we look back at her husband. And unprompted, she asked him, "Are you okay?" So I knew in that moment, like, she was sensing something weird too. I thought, I don't know this man. Like, maybe, I'm just getting a weird vibe. But she said straight up, "Are you all right?" And he responds. Now, mind you, this is a British man. Mm-hmm. He responds in a thick Irish accent, "You don't belong here."
Oh.
And I was like, whoa. And his wife, looked at me with this weird concern. And she asked him again, "Are you all right?" And he repeats in the Irish accent, "You don't belong here."
That is so
And I'm
creepy.
like, what is happening? Like, did they plan this? Like, my mind is going to these, how can I explain this scenario, places? And she asked him once again, more stern this time, "Are you all right?" And he just suddenly shifts his weight back against the wall, and he looks like he used to me, like he changed again. I use that word loosely because I don't know how else to describe it. And she looks at me, his wife looks at me again, concerned. And I'm just sitting here I'm not saying anything because I am trying to make sense of what's happening here. And she asks him again, "Are you all right?" And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" Back in his British accent, calm as a cucumber.
Uh-huh.
And his wife was like, "What just happened to you?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Now, I feel weird telling this story because I feel like it's one of those stories where it's that prime thing. If you didn't see it, you wouldn't get it. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't witnessed this and I just heard this story that I'm telling, I'd be like, well,
he could be playing a prank or whatever, but
I saw this man look different, have a different voice, and seeing their interaction afterwards, they would have to be Academy Award winning actors to pull this off in such a choreographed way. And this man later in the night came up to me and he's like, "Are you two messing with me?" And I'm like, "No, man."
No.
I am not messing with you. I was like, "Are you messing with me?"
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm wondering. And he's like, "I'm kind of freaking out." And I was like, "I get it."
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you, I've never witnessed something like that before.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to use the word like possession.
Yeah.
But something happened to you, man. I was like, I really encourage you to like whatever cleansing, like detachment thing you feel you need to do tonight. Like, I'll help you if you want, but you got to do that, man. Something happened to you. Like, your wife is not pulling your leg. If she's scared right now, I saw the fear in her eye. And so, like, I use this story as this example of, like, is hauntings happening inside of us? Like, something happened to that man. And I don't know. Again, I'm not necessarily going to use the word possession, but it was the closest thing to that I've ever witnessed. And it really had my gears turning about the internal mechanism of hauntings. Is something happening inside of us? Was this a spirit taking over him, or was it him reacting to the environment? Was like, what was going on with this situation? I will never know. I will never ever know. That's going to be an ongoing question for me.
Fingers crossed that one day somehow he calls you and he goes, "I figured it out," but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, and what is interesting about the history of that particular cell is that one of the like reports was about an Irish prisoner who used to stay in that cell, who had a particularly like violent history and like past. So I mean, the mix of all of that was just so. Of course, I'm not leaving scared. I'm leaving fascinated.
Yeah, you're like,
like, give me all the answers. That is because I want to know.
Oh, my problem. And I always tell my friends, I will die first in a horror movie because something creepy will happen. And I'll be like, I want to study it. No, I want to look closer.
Let me dive in. There's a noise in the hall. I'm running towards it. Please.
I've definitely done that and found a coyote instead, but you know.
Oh, well. Hey,
and then I was like, okay, I guess I should probably not be here right now, and I probably shouldn't be running around in the woods at night by myself.
At least you got that question answered, right?
Yeah. I was like, what is it? Oh, it's a coyote. Okay, okay. Maybe I should not be here right now. I was cryptid hunting, but you are a coyote, and that is not what I wanted to find.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at the end of the hour. It goes so quick. Do you have any other just fun stories you wanted to share before we're
fun stories? The one of my favorite stories to share. This is when I was in Texas with a team, and we were in a small Texas town in the middle of nowhere, investigating a hotel called the Nut House, coincidentally. But the family who owned it back in the 1800s, whenever it was their last name was Nut. So it's the Nut House. It wasn't just a clever, current name for this place. It was literally called the Nut House. And there were reports of a little girl ghost in the hotel. And luckily we had place to ourselves. And in the middle of the night when we were investigating, I had a thermal camera set. I was hand holding it, so it wasn't just set up on a tripod, looking down. It was a small hotel, so there was just one hallway of rooms with rooms on each side. The room at the very end of the hall was the one that this little girl supposedly had the most activity in. So I'm sitting at kind of the entranceway of this hallway, holding the camera, looking down the hall. And what do I see but this little figure poke its head out of that door and then poke its head back And I saw it on like the little window of the camera because I'm watching live as it's recording. And of course I run down the hallway towards it. And ironically, the door is shut to that room. So anything like passing through that doorway would have had to go through the actual door. And we spent so much time trying to recreate this thermal figure. When you see this tape, it looks like the girl from The Ring. Mm-hmm. Long hair. Like, you just see the hair swing out and swing back. I mean, it is creepy as hell, especially like post-Ring, you know.
It ruined long hair for little girls forever.
Ever. Yes. And we could not recreate this. We tried to get it to reflect off furniture. At the very end of the hallway, we tried to like see if there were any vents nearby. There wasn't. We tried to we could not recreate it. Now, that's not to say it was absolutely a little girl ghost. But afterwards, I did my let's go into the archives research mode. And I found that sure enough, there was a daughter to this family named Sally, mm-hmm. who died in the hotel at age 7 from consumption or whatever general term they used back in the 1800s. She died in the hotel. I didn't verify what room it was. That wasn't in any of the records, but it gave this credence to the story. And then having this figure, and of course skeptics will see it and say, I don't believe it. And then people who are open to the idea are that is creepy.
I would argue whether you believe it or not, it's still creepy.
It's creepy. You see this little girl and she pops her head in and pops her head out. We tried to get her to do it again and she wouldn't, but
you just get the one.
I'm sleeping in that room tonight. That's exactly what I was like. That is mine. I'm calling it. I heard a giggle at a different time in that room in that night. Just a weird giggle. Weird. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Little girl. Classic. Little girl ghost in a hotel.
Yeah. Always in a hotel too.
Always.
Well, awesome. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun.
Good. I've been enjoying myself, so thank you for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and sign off for the night. So, good night and good luck.
Hi, this is Papa with Paranormal Papa Investigations and Papa's Unique Wedding. I know so many of us, we want that memorable ceremony, whether it be themed, historic, whether it be Renaissance, whether it be done at a Renaissance fair, be it Celtic or Gaelic, be it French Revolution, be it Civil War, be it cowboy era. I've done them all. I have the outfits. The hardest part of a themed wedding is finding an ordained minister that'll put on funny clothes to match your unique desires for your ceremony. We have no problem with it at Papa's Unique Weddings. We specialize in the Druid, Norse, Celtic, Gaelic. We also specialize and love and respect our members of the LGBTQ plus community and are happy to conduct ceremonies for them. So if you're in need of a minister, if you're in need of a unique minister to officiate your unique ceremony, get a hold of us at Midwest Parahistoric Society at gmail.com, or you can contact us at the phone number listed below. We will do everything in our power to make your unique ceremony as memorable as you desire. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless you, God love you, we do. Are you bothered by the paranormal? Do you see, hear, even feel things in your home, your business, or on your property? If you do, and you'd like help, get a hold of us here at Paranormal Papa Investigations. Everybody has experiences, but if you'd like yours checked out, get a hold of us. We'd be more than happy to check it out for you, and if possible, give it the rest it deserves.